Is the sound now? I'm gonna go to my phone and see. I hear something.
Just turned it up down here.
Okay. Maybe I was too far away. Okay, let's get it. No, it's fine. Sis Matthias said that
This was all waiting.
okay.
Sound on there.
So let's get it. We're gonna start in the book of Esther. Chapter 1, verse 1. All right, let's get it. Book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. We're going to read the entire testimony. Let's get it.
Esther chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even to Ethiopia, over 127 provinces, that in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Mede, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days, in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law, none did compel. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house, that they should do according to every man's pleasure. And Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zothar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise man, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shather, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? Because she has not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen has not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes. When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. And when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, All the wives shall go to their husbands honored, both to great and small. And the sayings pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti, and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then said to the king's servants that ministered unto him, Let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Hegi, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women. And let their things for purification be given them, and let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the palace there was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away from Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also into the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him. And he speedily gave her things for purification, with such thing as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids into the best place of the house of the women. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house, to know how Esther did, and what should become of her. Now when every maid's turn was to come to go into King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women, for so were the days of their purifications accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purifying of the women. Then thus came every maiden unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shaashgaz, the king chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go into the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus, into his house, royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head, and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces, and gave gifts, according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, 2 of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth, and sought to lay hand on King Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen, and Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king.
After these, go ahead, read.
After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the king Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is, the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is, the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is, the month Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad, and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them.
Okay, so here we go. We're seeing that this is during the Persian Empire, but the Most High is putting an emphasis that Haman is a Agagite. He's a descendant of who? Go ahead. Esau. Agag. So the Most High is showing us that this is one of the initial tools that Satan is using from this seed that in the end times will persecute and afflict his children. And it's showing that he has the knowledge that the Israelites are not like the other nations. We have our own God. We serve Ahayah. And it says, verse 8, and Haman said unto the king Ahasuerus, There's a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Our laws are diverse from all people. The Most High only gave us his laws and commandments, the things that please him, the way of life that pleases him. No other nation operate like the children of Israel. It says, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them or allow them to exist. You see? So that's the mentality of this nation. That's why I know even in writings they say that so-called Caucasian and so-called black people can't exist in the same world. So that's why we see through our history this nation has come up with many plots to destroy us because it's the depopulation plan. And truthfully, when it all comes down to it, they know that our God is a God of order and a God of law. And he's a God that's true or faithful to his word. So the Most High said that if the stars, the sun, the moon neglect their ordinances, that he will forget all the children of Israel. And the promises they made to our father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob will be void. But it would never happen. The Most High said that he has engraved us on his hand. Okay, so they believe that if they can number us or destroy us, that by default they will inherit the promises that the Most High made to our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, let's get it.
Verse 9. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it unto the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy.
The who?
The Jews' enemy.
The Jews' enemy. This nation, again, are the descendants of Esau. As the Bible says that the son is like his father. So that when he's dead, it's the same plans in operation. So Esau desired to destroy his brother Jacob. And that desire has not faded. Okay? Has not faded. So it's showing that this nation will be the adversaries of the children of Jacob until the Messiah comes back. Throughout centuries, throughout generations, they've been attacking us. And because their father is known as a cunning hunter, and because the God they serve is Lucifer, through many sorceries they have deceived us to believe that they're not the enemy. Now, I'm not saying that all white people are enemies, okay? But you know, it's always the people that's in prominent positions. So, as the Bible says, the tabernacle of Edom, those who are in the rulership positions, those who commune with the devil, and a lot of people in the world don't believe in that, but it's real. This like the Most High sent angels to commune with our forefathers. Satan and the fallen angels commune or to have discussions, communication with their people. Okay, how else do you think that they come up with all these technologies or like these vaccines? These are things that the natural man can't even dream of. But they're giving them the knowledge, how to use the things of the earth as a weapon of destruction. Okay, so I said the Agagite, the enemies, the Jews' enemy, the same people that the Most High talks throughout the book of the whole Bible, especially the book of Deuteronomy. We say we will serve our enemies. Okay, we will serve our enemies, and these are the people that the Most High warned us against. Not saying that the other nations get off scot-free, because the Bible says that they're all Confederate. They all conspired against us. They had one consent. Okay? Let's get it.
Verse 11. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people, of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. And the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar.
Excuse me. But do y'all see how sinister that mindset is? Like that's not just a thought someone wake up with. Like what did these people do to the person to make someone feel like all of them need to be exterminated?
Babies and all.
See what I'm saying? So you see that it's deeper. Okay? Satan knows the prophecies concerning the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he's trying to destroy us before the Messiah comes. I mean, like last Sabbath, we read a portion out of the Josephus. It was saying that our laws are good. Now, our laws, is to prevent us from sinning. It's to be at peace with all men. So, why would a person or a nation want to destroy a peaceful people? Do y'all get what I'm saying? It's not the people, it's the spirits that's in this man. Satan is, it's like in the wilderness, in the wilderness when the Bible talks about Satan stood before Israel. Well, he's standing before Israel right now in this man, trying to eradicate the children of Israel. So trying to pervert or to prevent the Most High's promises of prophecy, which we know no one can do that. So it's in a sense it's the battle of the gods. And the Most High is going to show who's the God of all gods in the end of this testimony. Okay? Let's get it.
And one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan, the palace, and the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maid and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai, to know what it was, and why it was. So Hathach went forth to Mordecai into the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Jews, to destroy them. Also he gave them the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan, to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake unto Hathach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise. And so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way, and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Now it came to pass.
Excuse me. Do you all see the bravery of this woman? She's willing to die for her nation. If I perish, I perish. Mordecai had to remind her, look, think not that, you're going to escape. All of us will be destroyed. It's not plugged up. It's probably not turned on or something. The switch. Is it on? The laptop is about to cut off. Is it on? There we go. Cut off and be over with.
Testing.
Let's get it.
Chapter 5, verse 1. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, What wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, If it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared.
Now, we cannot overlook the fact that this, as I was saying, that Satan is standing up through Haman before the children of Israel, trying to implement his plot to destroy us. We see right here that the Most High is standing up to Israel by softening the heart of the king, to even cause him to break his own laws. Because seriously, not just the king, but his servants too. Because even when it came to Queen Esther, you see that his servants have influence. Because if you break the laws for one people, you got to do it for all. You know what I'm saying? So he said, if you don't do this, all the women in your kingdom will be like she is. And so it's not just the king, but all his chamberlain. He's softening their hearts, not even putting them in remembrance of the king breaking his law. Because they were the first ones. Like same thing with Pharaoh when he was here. It was his chamberlain or his little crew that was telling him through these spirits, telling him to go and retrieve us. And he listened. You see what I'm saying? So right now, the hearts of all these people are softened towards Queen Esther. Read.
Verse 6. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, My petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends, and Zeresh, his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king.
I love this part of the story. Haman was geeked. Come on, boasting, isn't it?
Yep. Haman said, Moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared, but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then said Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends unto him, Let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the king said, What honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this?
So again, do you see the divine intervention? The Most High is working for his people. He's using their law to do what? For his people. Read.
And the king said, What honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, There is nothing done for him. And the king said, Who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, Behold, Haman standing in the court. And the king said, Let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor?
Hold on, Slack. How tall was this device?
50 cubits.
It's something that you can't hide, so you can see it throughout the whole city. You know what I mean? Really?
So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, To whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself? And Haman answered the king, For the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighted to honor. Then the king said to Haman, Make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai, the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city.
But imagine that, though. Imagine that. The best thing, that's what he desired. And I want to bring out, I was trying to find the scripture, but it's written that with the same thing that we lust after. Let's make one with the Most High will use to punish us or to destroy us. You know, here's a brother that's gloating in his vain glory. So the Most High is stripping him, even using him. Even humiliating him by making him give his enemy the things of his heart desire. That's amazing. Read.
Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, Thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning, and having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise man and Zeresh his wife unto him, If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlain and hasted to bring Haman into the banquet that Esther had prepared. So the king and Haman came to banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, Who is he, and where is he, that durst presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, The adversary, an enemy, is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, Will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the king seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is, the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof, and it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants and the deputies and rulers of the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing, and according to their language. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey, upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that rode upon mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment. And the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them.
So when it said that they became Jews, you cannot become a Jew, right? It means that they cast away their vanities and their gods and serve the God of the Jews, seeing that the God of all gods, the God that created the heavens and the earth, was the God of the Jews. That's what it said. So they chose to follow the people of the Most High God. That don't make them a Jew. It just means that they became one with them as concerning their faith and their worship.
Chapter 9, verse 1. Now in the 12th month, that is, the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to put in execution, and the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had ruled over them that hated them, the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword. and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan, the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parashadath, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adaliah, and Aradiatha, and Parmashta, and Arasai, and Aradai, and Vajasa, the 10 sons of Haman, the sons of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand. On that day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. Or what is thy request further? And it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according to this day's decree. And let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day, also on the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan. But on the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together, and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 70 and 5,000. But they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning unto a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writings, and according to their appointed time every year, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews.
That these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews. Throughout all generations, right?
Nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fasting and their crop. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land, and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power, and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of the Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next unto the king.
Wait. Read that again.
Con.
And
And
are
all,
written what?
are they not written in the books of the chronicles of the kings of Medes and the Persians?
Now see, that's what I want to emphasize, because so many people think that we only have 66 books of the Bible. That book is not in your 66. We have Book of Chronicles, but not that one. We have many records, many books. Now the Bible right now, the Most High is referring to another record. Are they not written in what?
Are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia?
Of the kings of the Medes and Persians. We don't have that record, but they do. True history. Okay, read.
For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed.
So I want to read 2 Timothy chapter 3, a portion of verse 16. It says, the reason why we keep this day as a memorial is because chapter 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 16 says, all scripture is given by inspiration of God. We believe that the holy records are inspired by the Most High God and true. So this is not of any private interpretation. So the Most High commanded us through inspiring this brother to write down his words. So the seed of Jacob will keep this day in a memorial. Okay. Also, something I want to point out is in Chronicles, Book of Chronicles, chapter 7. 2 Chronicles, chapter 7. I'm just going to read a portion of verse 14 to show you that you notice that all Israel came together, fasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and prayed to the God of their fathers. Okay? And it says, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sins, and will heal their land. See, so what you see right there is also, like I said earlier, it's another battle of the gods. The Most High proved that He was the God of Israel, putting His spirit throughout all the land. They recognized that God was with His people. Okay, and there was nothing that they can do. And the Most High used it. It just amazes me, though, right? Throughout our history, when our people lack the spirit of the Most High, we fear, right? Like we be going to war, but we be in fear. Then when a prophet or a righteous king or priest pray to the Most High, He poured His spirit. The Most High said that He didn't give us the spirit of fear, but the spirit of might or courage. And all of a sudden, the same men that was afraid just instantly become valiant. These people, the same people that feared their destruction, all of a sudden became valiant and destroyed those who desired to destroy them. Showing the intervention. Okay? The Most High said that if we humble ourselves, cry out to Him, put away our iniquities, He will hear from heaven. And we see here again as another testimony that no matter what these nations plot against us, as it is written, if Ahayah be with us, who can be against us? Our God is greater than their gods. Here's the testimony showing that our God is greater than their gods. I mean, the plot was sealed. Sealed. But Most High put His He sent down angelical help. And He reversed the plot and destroyed all those who desired to destroy us with the same devices that they desired to destroy us with. And then also elevate Mordecai, rewarded him for being faithful and only fearing him. He said, I am a Jew. I would never bow down to any man but my king, who would have been an Israelite. He's not bowing down to another nation's king. Example for us. So when this nation use their fear tactics, I mean that's what they do. Put their fear tactics in the air. We are not to bow down to it. We are not to fear it. The Most High has showed us throughout His testimonies that nothing that they plot against us should destroy us. You know, it is crazy. You know, today was my first day of therapy from my knee surgery. She's not a friend of mine. It's someone that I just see every day from going to the truck stop to get my truck, right? Here's a sister. She has to be like in her 30s, right? I know it's like 2 months ago that she wasn't at work for like a week. I said, "Where's old girl at?" She said, "Oh, she has that, that flu thing." And so I'm there. I'm in the therapy thing. I'm looking at my little tablet. I'm answering all these questions. I'm doing my evaluation before my therapy. And I heard somebody like doing this to me. I seen them. I looked up. I said, like, "Oh, girl," she had a mask on. Looking at her. Now, and the sister was already about that big, but she's smaller than that now. And I'm looking at her and I said, "What's going on?" And she had a stroke and lost the ability, the functionality of her right side. And it's just, it's just amazing. Like looking back on, like, man, our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge of our God and our laws. This is how I feel. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying this factual, this is how I feel, okay? But it's just amazing to me that since this thing been going on, so many young people, who has taken the jab or even that haven't caught it, having strokes and other adverse effects. And I'm like, someone 35 years old naturally should not be having a stroke. So you look at it like, well, what changed? So it's like anything else. You break it down to the lowest common denominator, right? Boom. Had that, got that. Fortunately, she's still living, you know what I'm saying? But imagine if they would, like I heard today, some people that fall ill of it still are having strokes. You know what I mean? And other things, but fear is a real enemy. And it's the last, like I said, it's the last trick in the bag of the devil. But that's why the Most High tells, he always talks about his laws, statutes, commandments, judgments, and his testimonies. Because you notice, what I noticed was so contrary to today. You hear all these people talking about blessings and they're blessed. We just read a real blessing. A real blessing. But in a time of trouble, fulfilling scripture, the Most High say, in a time of trouble, call on him. He will be a buckler to us, a shield, a defense. All of them cast away their vanities, humble themselves, listen to the commandment of Mordecai and Esther, and fasted, they prayed, cried out to him, and immediately the Most High, they was all on one accord. And we see that throughout our history. So when I asked the brother to continue, to repeat that book of Chronicles of the Kings of the Medes and Persians, it's a reason that these Romans, these Roman Catholics have not given us all our records. These testimonies will just make us strong in faith. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that killed me concerning like the Christian church. Every week, they want to give their testimony, but they ain't reading these testimonies. What's somebody's testimony, got to do with anything? Like, you have a testimony, but you're still wicked. You went through something. We all suffer the curses of Jacob. All of us is going through something. I can't find nobody in our nation that ain't going through nothing. We are really a destroyed, oppressed, spoiled people. Trodden down underfoot. So everybody's going through something, but so you get these testimonies, they run there, yeah, the Lord did this to me, but then you ain't changed your life. So how are you delivered from this? These are testimonies that we be reading and taking heed to. The testimonies of our God and His people. And it says, we are His witnesses. We are His witnesses. We have witnesses. We have witnessed His judgments, His might, His power, His vengeance on His people. So that as a commandment. We have our holy days. It's always a commandment. It's a commandment to read over the testimonies, because for those who don't know, can understand why we're doing what we're doing. Today is a feast day. It's a day of enjoying, like I said, rejoicing. I hope y'all brought y'all some wine. I got mine. Yeah. But no, seriously though. But let's enjoy these 2 days. Let's eat good. Let's be merry. And remember our God, the God of all God, the God of Hebrews, Ahayah. With that, Shalom.